We are back with another live episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Steph Sanchez. Steph, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop right now. What is Jay going to say? I'm going to say, I can't believe that it took me so long to start What We Do in the Shadows on FX. It's such a good show. And that's my biggest
I heard
takeaway
that.
from this weekend.
I have not heard of that show, but I will check it out. I started watching the new season of the morning show on Apple TV. That one is really good. But we're not here to talk favorite TV
We're
shows.
not.
No, man. I mean,
Season
I'm
one was
sure
good
at
of
some
Morning
point you're
Show.
gonna
I
throw
see
in
that.
like a quote, like some very obscure, very specific quote from like a TV show or movie. Um, and so we'll probably talk about that at some point. But Jay, I want to know what it was like to be in the Bay. You got to go to the game on Sunday. How was your trip?
If I look a little tired, it's because I'm exactly exhausted. Leaving San Jose, real quick funny story. Leaving San Jose, it's kind of troubling when the pilot says that they have to unplug the plane as if it was a modem. And I said, okay. That's generally how you fix your internet. Not sure that's a fix for a plane, but the problem is, and flying into San Jose, that there are connecting flights. So
Mhm.
if you don't take off on time from San Jose, you can miss your connector. And I spent a little bit more time in Minneapolis than I would have liked. But hey, I made it. It was cool to be out there. The only problem is I brought the bad weather with me. It rained a lot that first day that I got there, and then the day of the game, it was just like the same temperature was on the East Coast. I was just like, what the hell am I doing here, man? Like, what? Like, why is this like desirable?
Well, at least it didn't rain for the game. I mean,
I mean, I'll take my wins where I can get them at this point because there were so few. I mean, there was a big 49ers win, and I think that's what everybody wants to talk about. But it was, yes, and What We Do in the Shadows is hilarious. It's such a good show. So being in the stadium, I think a lot of times I'm sitting here trying to be objective. I'm watching the game, I'm writing things down so I can remember things. You
mhm.
kind of forget that fan energy, and that was a lot of fun to be around, right? And the to be in the stadium when George Kittle didn't get the call on the defensive, PI that everybody thought it would be,
Mm.
and like to hear the fans. It's like, in the in the house, I would be like, man, that's a bad call, but like everybody else is screaming expletives. I think I kind of missed that stuff. I miss like that energy, that type of energy. And Chris, thank you for the donation. Tuesdays are usually busy for me and never see you guys live, but have a little bit of support. Thank you for that. Love the content and banter, little more personality than the OGs. Keep it up. Whoa, appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much for that, man. But stuff like the tailgating, right, and going out and seeing people and speaking about the team, that stuff I kind of really miss. So that part, like while I'm complaining about the flights, going to the game is still super fun, and it still is fun, no matter how many times you do go.
Oh yeah, it's great to have the energy of Levi's there. Even the away games, and I know you've been to quite a few. I'd
Hmm.
love to go to more away games, but I know it's great because the 49er fans travel so well and they always bring the energy wherever they go. So yeah, it's a different kind of experience getting to see things live. Sometimes you do miss things like as content creators. I kind of sometimes hate watching games live just for that specific aspect that sometimes I
Hmm.
do miss things that maybe I would watch on TV. So then I got to go watch the game like back again, like the broadcast. But there's nothing like the energy. So you can't get that anywhere else. You can't get that through the TV. So yeah, it's always fun when you're in the house.
Yeah, and that's kind of what stopped me from tweeting about the game because there's so many things that happen, and you really can't see everything from in the stands. I was able to definitely watch the film on the way home. I watched it twice. Let's start with the offense because that was the most fun to watch. I mean, the first touchdown was just genius, just like little subtle things. I don't want to say genius, right? Because that's gonna be like, oh, hyperbole. But it was just genius, subtle little things, right? Christian McCaffrey just takes a few steps in motion, and by the time he's across the formation, Devin White has no chance to catch him, and it's an easy layup. And it's like little things like that are how you can spring people open. And when you have a player as special as McCaffrey to execute it, it looks easy like that. And that I noticed in the stadium. Like I literally was pointing it out to the person I was with, and their eyes kind of crossed, but I was trying to explain like how just a subtle movement, right? Moving everybody that way and then
Hmm.
bringing him back across fast on a sprint. There was no chance for Devin White. Actually, watching the film again, it looked like there were not pick routes, but there were 2 routes that were run right over the top of it, just to kind of, in case Devin White just happens to run into somebody, it would make it easier for McCaffrey. But that first touchdown drive, it was incredible. I want to start with Brock Purdy, man.
Mm-hmm.
He was great. He was great. 4 incompletions, 3 touchdown passes. Again, I don't want to talk about rankings, anything like that. I am just going to objectively call it what it is. Perfect passer rating. The last guy to do that, Joe Montana, like objectively, he is playing great football. I don't know what else needs to be said, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, and just to go back on the offense really quick as a whole, like as it stands, they rank 7th best in offensive DVOA since 1981. Think about that. And I think I saw someone point out that 3 of the top 7 were coordinated by A. Shanahan. So either Kyle or Mike Shanahan,
Like,
right? So that just tells you how prevalent and awesome this scheme is. And you were just talking about some of the things you watched on film. Those are things you can catch each and every week when it comes to this offense, and especially the way we're seeing it now and how it's being executed. I love to see like Kittle staying involved in this game.
so.
I like to see that it seems like they have a consistent downfield target in Brandon Ayuk. The 49ers continue to be comfortable throwing downfield. Like Purdy is at 9.7 yards per attempt for the season. That leads the league. And since the merger, the only quarterback that's higher is Kurt Warner, whose full season YPA was 9.9. So I don't know. I feel like there's still a chance for Brock to reach that or beat that. But of course, there's a lot of football left. But it's just little things like that that I feel like the offense is definitely clicking. And what's crazy is that even despite all this, it still feels like there's some things that could stand to improve, right? Like red zone, third down conversions. In the last 2 weeks, they're 8 of 22 on third downs. They're now ranked 20th in third down conversions per game. In the last 2 weeks, there were 3 of 8 in the red zone. So that's not me complaining. Like, obviously, I'm very happy about the win. There's a lot to be excited about as far as the performance goes. But I'm just like, I'm starting to think ahead a little bit that maybe those 2 things, like, not going to cut it against some better opponents. But again, there's still a lot to like about this offense. And Brock Purdy, man, he's been on a tear these last 2 weeks. 40 of 51, 629 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then on Sunday, he attempted 25 throws. He was blitzed on 16 of those, according to PFF. And on those throws, he was 13 of 16, 231 yards, and 2 touchdowns. His touchdown to Brandon Ayuk was maybe the best throw I've ever seen from him. It was a dot. And I think it was most impressive because, everyone talks about, oh, Brock Purdy, he can't throw far and all these things. That one traveled 52 air yards before reaching Ayuk, according to Andrew Pasquini, who so graciously did the math for us. And I mean, I think also just like the off schedule things that Brock Purdy is doing, like one of the plays that a lot of people have kind of shared the screen grab of Deebo Samuel being so wide open. There wasn't anyone like within 20 yards of him. And that was on an off schedule play. And, we even to this day keep hearing people talk about Purdy being a product of the system. And I still have like debates with people about this. And, people saying if you take him out of this team, he's a nobody. And they use the previous quarterback, and I'm not going to say his name, as a reason to believe that Purdy is just the same kind of quarterback, right? But I'm going to continue trusting my eyes, and my eyes are telling me they are not the same. And I've known for a while, but Kyle on KNBR last week said that he wants a guy who gives the team a chance to win the game, not a guy who is just hoping everyone else wins it for
Shots fired.
That was a bar, by the way. That was a bar. And
It
so, like,
is,
that
but
quote
at the
right
same time,
there,
it's like, man, Jimmy's sitting somewhere in Vegas, like, what did he say?
catching
What did I
strays.
do? Yeah.
He's sitting on the bench. That's what he's doing.
Oh
But like
man.
that spoke volumes to me because like it told me everything I needed to know and everything, like it confirmed what I already knew about Purdy because he brings a skill set to a team, his own skill set that it didn't have before, that I think the offense is now benefiting from, right? Like he just adds a little bit extra to this offense. So it's a two-way street. He is benefiting, of course, from the scheme, from the playmakers, but I also think, Purdy brings something to the table too that the offense is now benefiting from. I just want to throw out this before I kick it back to you. Nick Wagner posted this stat from 2017 to 2022. Jimmy Garoppolo was 6 of 40 with 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on throws traveling 30 or more air yards. That's in a span of 5 seasons, okay? In 10 games this year, Brock Purdy is 5 of 9, so of course not as many attempts downfield, but he's 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions on throws 30 or more air yards. So that's just one example where you could kind of like quantify the difference between the two. But there are countless more that show up on tape. So I'm going to just continue to say that Purdy's on a different level and he's operating this offense at a different level. That's why we're seeing some things, some new wrinkles that maybe we hadn't seen before. And Kyle is loving it, man. He loves Brock. I love Brock. And I just want to ask you something really quick, Jay. Do you think that Brock should be back in the MVP conversation?
Well, Chris Waddell, thank you for the donation. He thinks so. Purdy back in the MVP talk right now. He is plus 1,800 for it. I think it's actually more of a conversation now because there is no clear MVP front runner right now, right? I think, right, like when you look at this, it's a quarterback award. But what quarterback has exactly blown people away for this entire time where it's like, man, he's an MVP front runner? I mean, if anything, I think the most dangerous and consistent person that's valuable, it might be Tyreek Hill. And that's strange to say, right? Like, so he has to be in this conversation because we watched last night, unfortunately, Patrick Mahomes. Thanks a lot, Chiefs, for nothing. Thanks a lot, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, for nothing. Thanks a lot, Justin Watson, for nothing, because he was throwing the ball and getting it dropped. Jalen Hurts doesn't look like an MVP candidate, like, and all the other guys. It's no one clear thing, like, right? So he has to be in this conversation. And when you play games like this in a row, it has to put you in there. I think there's a number. The person who leads in, if it's not QBR or something like that, the quarterback, the last 5 seasons has been the one who has won the MVP. And right now, Brock Purdy leads, I think, in that, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So yeah, he has to be in the conversation. But you look at the Brandon Ayuk play, which I believe is the longest pass play from scrimmage this season. That's impressive, and that was amazing to be in the stadium for. And definitely, that's the best throw that I've seen from Brock Purdy, and probably from a quarterback not named Steve Young in a long time, right down the sidelines, right? Dropping the bucket, he probably couldn't have handed it to him any better than he did. But while everyone's on that, I went back and I watched, and I'm watching a guy who is anticipating and throwing the ball before guys' heads are even turned around or before they're out of breaks and layering throws. All that stuff looks normal, right? And that's why it doesn't get praised. It looks easy. But we haven't seen a quarterback do that. I don't want to keep picking on Jimmy or anybody else. It's right. It's like people have to be wide open. Purdy throws it before they are, sees it before they are, layers it in between, right? And you don't fear the ball leaving the screen. Those are the throws that I'm impressed with. Everybody's going to be on that Ayuk throw, right? And that for good reason, because it was an incredible throw. But my goodness, man, there was a throw to Ayuk on the other side of the field in which he throws it and he doesn't even know if Ayuk's going to get open, and kind of just puts it out there hoping that he will, or trusting, and the ball's just right on him, like right where it is. And then the layer throws where the ball's like right on guys' faces and being able to put the ball wherever he can. You talked about improvement. There is some improvement to be had in terms of understanding where the rush is coming from. I want to say 2 of the sacks were just on free rushes that could have been checked. You could have you could have slid right somebody over, but you had free rushers. So it wasn't necessarily anything other than that. That's going to come with experience as well, too. No quarterback's perfect. But my goodness, man, I don't know that I can remember a quarterback playing that well in a game where just everything was just easy, right? Like, I mean, you could say, hey, Deebo Samuel's running wide open. Sure, that's, again, scheme, playmakers for sure. But what's the excuse for the IU throw on the sideline? What's the excuse for, throwing the ball in between a linebacker and a safety. Those are things that we just didn't see before, right? And Brock is an aggressive thrower of the ball downfield, but aggressive is fine if you're not hitting him. That it doesn't matter. And you're starting to see, no matter what anybody tells you, right? Oh, the offense is predicated on quick passes, all of those things. Yeah, that's true. But Kyle has those shots dialed in, and they've been in the offense. They have. They just weren't taken. And if you think that Kyle doesn't want those shots taken, especially if they have an advantageous matchup, and you think that he just wants everything in the middle of the field or a slant, anything like that, then you're just sorely mistaken. And he is having a ton of fun right now, calling this offense. And Chris, thank you for another donation. Very generous. Vegas has Hurts as MVP favorite, I think, at plus 250. Um, who could argue, right? They won another muddy game. They find ways to win, man.
9 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean he has, and I mean he didn't throw a touch. He threw one touchdown pass yesterday. I know he ran for two.
Yeah, he ran for 2.
But like my thing is, for the way that the season's kind of gone, I haven't really seen someone that I'm just like, that's the MVP. Like he's just balling. Like for a few weeks, I thought it was Lamar. For a few weeks, I thought Josh Allen figured it out. And it could be anybody at this point. There's a lot of time left. I don't know if I remember a time where we're in week 11 where it's like so up in the air and it's anybody's award to get. But yeah, bottom line, and this is really, really big analysis here. So just sit back and make sure you take this in. Brock Purdy's playing really good football. Boom. That's how you nail that one down. Okay.
Boom.
It is good to see George Kittle, though, continuing to be a part of the offense. 4 straight games over 70, another touchdown. It's Kittle, Ayuk, Debo. If I tell you before the game, Steph, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey are going to score. They're going to have big games. You say 49ers win by how much?
I mean, probably 20.
Right. Right. And that's the thing, is keeping everybody involved, and that's the thing. It's like there were so many games where we look and we're like, man, well, is Kittle blocking? Why isn't he getting any throws? But they're picking right back up, and at the right time, especially too with this game that we've got coming up in 2 days, which I'm like, my stomach is already churning. Just from PTSD, and obviously you guys know why. But only one target went to someone other than Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, or CMC. That's good. I think that's really good. I think that's Kyle Shanahan. I know you're watching. I think this is probably your best course of action. Throw the ball to your best players, hand the ball to your best players, and then let them do football player stuff. I mean, that's just high level analysis there as well, too, Steph.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that yesterday, speaking with the media, like Kyle Shanahan kind of suggested that Kittle's maybe lack of involvement early in the season was due to him like still trying to come back from injuries and injuries nagging and things like that. That always seems to be the excuse. I don't know if that's for sure the case, but it definitely seemed like with Debo dealing with his injury a few weeks ago, it kind of forced the 49ers to, rediscover Kittle as a target, right? And they've kept him involved, which at this point feels like a bonus for this offense. Anytime you can get him involved, it just feels like a little extra. It feels like, getting ice cream after dinner kind of thing. Like, you're just a little extra. And look, before we move on from like the offense, I just want to mention this one last thing about Brock. You know how like Beyonce has an on stage like alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know,
Sasha
Beyonce,
Fierce.
yeah. So Beyonce, who speaks like in person, or I've never talked to her in person, but
You
if you
haven't?
see her in interviews and stuff, like she's super shy, low key, like very soft spoken. And on stage, she's like this, beast. She's singing and dancing her ass off the charts performer, entertainer. And so, and so when I think about that, and yeah, her alter ego is Sasha Fierce. When I think about like Brock Purdy and I see him play, I kind of feel like he kind of has like an alter ego of his own, like when he's on the field, right? He just has this like swagger and confidence to him, especially when he has like big plays or touchdown. You see the celebrations,
Oh, yeah.
you've seen them. So I don't know. Off the field, obviously, he's like super humble and like down to earth, kid from Arizona. But on the field, he's BCB. And I love that for him. It's nice to, him showing that little, I don't know, raunchy side of it. I don't know what you would call it. Like it's just kind
It's
of
it's extra. I
crazy.
mean,
It's
he seems
extra.
locked in. He's
Yeah,
just locked in,
yeah.
right? Like he's
He's in a
someone who's
different mode.
yeah, like he walks in the room in a press conference and looks like the cool substitute teacher, and then on the field he turns into somebody completely different. And I think that that's how everybody should be, right? Like everything has to be even keeled. But when you're on the field, I like guys to show emotion, especially when you are playing as well as Brock Purdy is. So shout out to you, Brock Purdy. Keep on going, man. This is a good feeling, man. All of this good quarterback play. I don't know what to do with my hands right now. All right, defensively, defensively. 38 pressures by the defensive line,
Crazy.
38-12 by Eric Armstead. Hello, Eric Armstead. Chase Young Chase Young collapsed the pocket, I believe, on one of his when I was watching it back. I mean, I saw it when it happened because he literally like walked down the left tackle and then
Yeah, Tristan
Armstead.
Wirfs, right? Like
Uh
he.
huh. Uh
Yep.
huh. Nick Bosa double sack day. My goodness, 38 pressures. Steve Wilkes. Not only do I want you to stay on the sideline, get that man a tent and do not let him leave the sideline. You are not leaving at all. Stay on the sideline. Is it all that, or is it just the addition of Chase Young, or is it all those things, Steph?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So while it's been great to see Wilkes on the sideline, it's not the only reason that we're suddenly seeing this defense start clicking again. Because they were clicking in week 5, they were clicking in moments through weeks 1 through 5, right? So it's a accumulation of a lot of different things. But it is cool to see Wilkes on the sideline, even still. Armstead, yeah, 12 pressures, 10 hurries, a sack. His previous highest for pressures and hurries was week 1 of 2021 against the Lions when he had 9 pressures and 8 hurries. Think about, like, okay, he went 12 and 10. So that's a pretty, like, significant amount above that game. And I like what you said about the pressures, because now, like, the 49ers defense has one of the lowest blitz percentages in the league. They're third least because they're getting home with the 4 guys up front now. And that's exactly what we've been waiting on, right? That was part of the reason that when they were blitzing just a little bit more, we felt like that doesn't really work with how this defense looks, with how it normally operates. And now they're getting back to getting after the quarterback with just 4, and now everything kind of seems to be in place, right, of how it used to be before. So I like it. Eric Armstead, he definitely deserved his flowers in this game. Fred Warner, another guy who had a really awesome game. It was his birthday. He had 12 tackles. Man, I'm gonna go through like some of his stats in this. Okay, all of his stats, but 12 tackles, a batted pass, a pass breakup, a hurry, a sack, forced fumble, 7 stops, only 20 yards allowed in his coverage. I mean, he was all over the place, and I want to credit him and Greenlaw for limiting Chris Godwin as much as he was in that game, because they like to target Godwin in the intermediate level of the field. They kind of eliminated all of that, which they normally do, right? So that's why we didn't see Godwin get a catch until like the third quarter. And he only had, I believe, like 39 receiving yards. So credit to those guys as well. I mean, you talked about Chase Young, Nick Bosa. I mean, there's just so many guys you could talk about on this defense that have been stepping up this last few weeks. They're back on top in points allowed per game. They're back to being third in opponent rushing yards per game. They lead the league in interceptions. They're second in takeaways, just 1 behind the Jags. I think they have 19 total takeaways to the Jags 20. And to go along with that, I think we saw a new wrinkle too that I hope sticks around. Like I saw a lot of pass breakups on Sunday, right? It just seemed like the coverage was on point a little bit more than we had seen, right? So I also like the missed tackles was also improved. They had 7 last week in Jacksonville, which was an improvement. And then they had 4 against Tampa Bay. So I love to see it. Hopefully they continue on this path. And Kyle Shanahan was asked about like the defense yesterday too, and he kind of was like, "Yeah, like it's 2 good games, and they're on the right path." But he kind of made it seem like but we got to keep it going. Like, it's
Yeah,
2 games, but I'm not getting
yeah,
too excited, kind of thing. Like, you better keep this up. So
yeah.
he's still got the defense on notice a little bit. He's like, Steve Wilkes, still got my eye on you.
hmm Yeah, and the other good thing before we like really dive into defense is that Trent Williams looks a lot better. One pressure, one hurry on the offensive side. So that's another good sign.
Nice.
And obviously he's getting healthier. But defensively, obviously the defensive line is going to get the glory. Obviously, the big news right now is that Talano Hufanga is going to be out for the year. But the secondary, again, in nickel situations, it was Lenore inside. And every time it's outside, Lenore had himself a hell of a game. I believe he allowed 14 yards. He was the highest graded coverage. No. The highest graded coverage player in the secondary was actually Tashawn Gibson. And Lenore was right behind him. But Ji'Ayir Brown is now going to step up. And we talked a lot about the third round picks, but I want to make sure I get this off without anybody dismissing the loss of Hufanga.
Mm.
Tig's skill set mirrors Hufanga's, meaning play downhill, play fast, hitter, and the ball seems to find him. And if you don't believe me, Tig gets the interception in the end zone off of a tip pass that normally would have been where Hufanga would be standing. They have the same similar skill set. And I think the idea is eventually, whenever Tashawn Gibson moves on, whether that's next year or that, is to pair them both. And then you have two ball hawking, fast players, right, like that. So, okay. So 30 snaps. He got a 70 something coverage grade, I think, or overall defensive grade. But I'm not as afraid of the Hufanga loss because of Ji'Ayir Brown and because of his skill set and because of what you can already see. The kid's already wise beyond his years. The reason that he wasn't playing was because they already have their two starters in Gibson and Hufanga. But now it's time for Tig to show out. And I think he did a great job. And I think if there is some light at the end of the tunnel because you never want to see Hufanga go down. By the way, Rashad White, that was not cool, man, at all. What you did to Hufanga, that was dirty. That was like you didn't have to juke him like that. But yeah, I don't feel as nervous about that spot. Maybe you feel nervous because Tig doesn't have experience, but their skill sets are so similar that they will play almost the same exact role. I'm not saying the defense won't miss a beat. I'm not saying the secondary won't miss a beat, but I have faith in Tig, man. I really do. I think that he's going to be good, and I think that he's going to be somebody who down the stretch we look at like, man, we got ourselves another guy in the draft, and with their first pick in the draft this year, it's good to see. I mean, it's not good to see that he's going to play because of the cost, but he's going to get to contribute, and I think that's the good part.
Yeah, Jay, like, I remember one of your like preseason predictions for the year was that Tate was going to find his way onto the field at some point. And this was probably not the way that you imagine that happening. I'm sure for him as well. Um, but I think some of the things that we were hearing, not just from Brown, like one of the things that he was saying after the game was just how much preparation he was putting into eventually getting on the field, right? Like, as a player who's like second string, I feel like they always have to be prepared no matter what, right? So you got to prepare like you are a starter already because you never know when your name's going to be called. And it definitely felt like he kind of had that mindset. And one of the things that Kyle Shanahan said yesterday too was, quote, he's been practicing like he knew this moment was coming. He's been locked in, extremely impressive for a rookie, end quote. So while some people wonder, okay, well, why wasn't he on the field before? Clearly, they had safety locked down with Gibson and Hufanga already, but now this opportunity comes for him to pretty much show what he had been preparing for this whole time. And you are going to get those rookie moments. He had one in the game when he gave up that big completion to Cade Otton there, but I mean, the way he was able to respond after that, I think tells you everything you need to know about how he had prepared. He finished the game with 4 tackles, 3 pass breakups, and an interception. Like, that's a stat line some guys play the whole game to get, and he did it in less than 2 quarters, right? So I also have to acknowledge and give him flowers for the type of performance that he had in the type of situation that he was put in. Like, not just like coming in for Hufanga middle of the game, but just he was in some high pressure moments covering Mike Evans on a 4th and 4, right? Like that's not easy to do, and he didn't interfere with him. I think like the whole defense played a great down on that one, but yeah, I think Ji'Ayir Brown is ready, and I'm excited to see it. I get the sense he's a guy who, like from everything we've heard, right? Like he's very mature. He's ready for this moment. So, and I like seeing young players get their shot and seeing what they do with it. So it's going to be something that I'm going to be, we'll all be following for the next few weeks.
Yeah, and he's got to get ready for a big game on Thursday, a big test with Lockett, JSN, and DK Metcalf. Oh, goodness gracious. So overall, this performance, I think, is actually very encouraging because I thought and it felt like the game was going to go away, right? Like it was just going to get away. And shout out to Kev. Thank you for the donation, buddy. Sucks to see Huff go down for the year, but as you said, Ji'Ayir Brown is sideline to sideline ball hawk, free safety, and Gipper's more natural strong safety anyway, I believe. Brown will be huge on the back end. Niner gang over everything. And that's the thing is the alignments, right? And I don't like getting wrapped up in the whole like strong safety, free safety thing because they just move those guys around. It's a little bit like
Mhm.
that. But I did see a little bit like when I was at the game and then on the way back home on the flight watching the film, you did see Jair in the free safety spot and move him around, right? Like I think he is
They
like
had
one
him
of
at
those
single
chess,
high.
right? And
It
that's
shows
what I'm saying.
trust.
Like he's a chess piece, right? Like
Yeah.
have him single high, have him free safety, have him strong safety, have him at the line, have him in the slot. Snoopy Cortez says we should give Tart a call just to be safe. I am not against that at all. I am not against that at all. But again, I don't know how that would go. But yeah, I mean, taking somebody that they can move around, like you said, covering Mike Evans, right? Move like he's a chess piece. And I think again, I'm not downplaying the loss of Huff, but with his skill set and what we know about him, he can slide right into that role. Now there's gonna be bumps and bruises because obviously he's a rookie, and that's fine. But for the most part, I feel like the defense can continue to move in this direction because of what Tig brings to this team. But the performance in this game, I feel like is a lot more encouraging because this game felt like you were about to you were about to see a blowout. And then it gets a little tense and it gets a little
Hmm.
tense and it gets like that's probably the closest to a tight win that the 49ers have had, even though the score wasn't indicative of like the two teams that were on the field. But you do kind of want to see those stands, right? You do kind of want to see them make plays in the red zone when the game's on the line. Like most of the time when the 49ers are winning, the game's over by that time in the fourth quarter. So it is a little bit more encouraging to see them right now go through those situations because they just haven't been tested in that way with the lead, right? Like either they're playing from behind, trying to win, or they're blowing people out and the game's like out of reach, right? Like with a lead, now it's starting to tighten up. Now what do you do? Like can you and you not letting it get away. So I thought that was encouraging as well too.
Yeah, because we've talked about it endlessly, and the team knows this. If they're playing their best ball, no one can beat them. The 49ers can beat themselves, and there
Yeah,
were points in the first half and some of the stats that I mentioned with the third down in the red zone. Some of those things kept the Bucs within somewhat of a striking distance, right? But I liked the fact that they were able to lock in, I think, when it mattered most, especially on the defensive side. I mean, I kind of have gotten the sense all season that this defense has been bend, don't break. So, yeah, I've appreciated that effort in this game. It was a small glimpse of maybe, what's to come in these next few weeks, but I'm glad they could get some of that experience cuz yeah, the only way that they've been used to winning is just blowing people out. And yeah, they won by, 2 scores, but still it's nice to at least feel in a game for them to get that experience of okay, we can lock in and we can tighten up the coverage, we could do this and that. It wasn't easy, like you're going up against Mike Evans, a lot of situations in like the red zone where they were trying it. So, at the end of the day, they got the win and they tightened up where they needed to.
absolutely. So to put a bow on this one, Brock Purdy's really good. The defense was very good, especially up front. But now because it's Tuesday, there's a game on Thursday.
Oof.
Yeah, and Steph's face said it all. For the audio listeners, you're not going to be able to see. She made the "Ugh." And let me be clear. The 49ers are certainly better than the Seattle Seahawks. But pardon me, if I can't think about or remember Thanksgiving, Levi Stadium, yeah, look, there's something about the Seattle Seahawks that makes me uneasy all the time. If the Seattle Seahawks started their punter at quarterback, I'd be like, "Oh God, I don't know what are they thinking?" Right? Like I'd be like, "Oh no!" Right? Um, Something about this game has been uneasy for me since the schedule came out, and for obvious reasons. But the Seahawks are a little bit banged up. Looks like Kenneth Walker, he may not be on IR, but he's definitely not playing on Thursday. So they're going to be down to Zach Charbonnet from UCLA at running back. Gino had an elbow issue. Sounds like he's going to play. But if you listen to Pete Carroll speak, everything's great. DK Metcalf can have an amputated foot, and you say, "Well, I give him a pretty good chance to play on Sunday." Like literally, that's everything's good with Pete Carroll. Always, there's never any problem. It's never a problem. Like, oh, broken leg for DK Metcalf. Well, I think he's got a chance to play on Sunday. I feel really good about it. Like it's always everything's always good. So when you hear him
Irks me,
say, "Oh,
man.
yeah," it does too. It's just like, dude, he's out. Stop messing around. Like, why are you being like if your player gives up 12 sacks, well, I think he had a really good game. No, he didn't. Like, no, he didn't. Like, just like what the hell? But it sounds like he thinks Gino's gonna play. Um, the Seattle defense, obviously on the outside with their corners, Witherspoon and Reek Woolen, um, they're very good. They're very good. That's a hell of a duo out there. And then up front, you're not as worried about the pass rush. But they brought Frank Clark back, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, but it's just less about the players on the field because it could be anybody. But something about this game still is just I'm anxious, and I already want it to be. It's like when you take a test, like you studied, you prepared, but you just want to know that the test is over and that you passed or that you got like a high grade, right? Like that's how I feel about this game, just because of the things that we've seen and how annoying Pete Carroll's been as a Seahawks coach and how that team plays the 49ers.
I mean, it's a rivalry, right? Like, and there's a lot of trauma for us 49er fans in thinking about this rivalry. So anytime that we have to play the Seahawks, all that gets brought up again, and that's where the uneasy feeling comes from. Uh their defense is good. It's really solid, but their offense has been the one that's taken a step back this year, right? And so I think obviously Ken Walker probably being out in this one, that's going to hurt him. Zach Charbonnet is a pretty good running back, but as
I
I
think he's a good running
mentioned,
back. He's a
yeah,
rookie though.
yeah, he's a rookie. And as I mentioned, like the 49ers defense is kind of getting back into their form and being able to stop the run as of late. Geno Smith, I do expect that he's going to play. Just the fact that he went back in there for that final drive for the Seahawks, I think tells you he wants to play. And that's a big part of the equation there. So I think they know how big this game is, especially because they lost on Sunday against another divisional opponent in the Rams.
Shout out to the
So
Rams.
they need this one. They need this one really bad. And so I think he's gonna play. Whether it impacts him any amount, I don't know. I mean, it's like that bruise in the elbow, right? So he completed passes just fine at the end of that game against the Rams. So we'll see how that does. But they're a worse team on third down than even the 49ers are. And the 49ers, like I said, it's an area they could improve, but they're not that bad. The Seahawks are 30th in the league, ahead of just the two New York teams, the Jets and the Giants. That's not good. They're converting just 31.7% of their third downs. They're 28th in red zone scoring percentage. So there's a lot with the offense that's not going right with them. So there's reason to feel good, but I'm with you, Jay. Even despite all of that, like I still don't feel good. Like, cause the
Yeah.
Seahawks always try some stuff,
Nonsense.
like
Yeah. No, you were gonna
yeah,
say
they're
they
they're
try some
always on some
bullshit.
they're always on some tomfoolery, like
Yeah.
against like I don't know what it is, but Pete Carroll always like throws out some play he's like maybe never tried
Fake
before,
punt,
or like
fake
yeah,
field
fake
goal.
punt. Like,
Yeah.
come on, man,
Yeah. Like
come
the
on.
referee
So
the referee is the 11th player on the field and he catches the pass, like that type of stuff, man. So I mean, Steph didn't want to say it, but
yeah,
yeah, Seattle's always on
yeah.
some bullshit.
Yeah,
Like
you're
I just
right. That's the word I wanted to use.
my clear football
Leap it out.
objective mind says the 49ers are going to win this game and better. My my heart and my gut are scared to death because Seattle is so annoying. And let's get to some of these super chats. Vishal says, "Are we going to look for some depth at safety now? Who should we call?" I mean, it was already suggested about Tart. I don't know what sort of shape he's in. I don't know if he even wants to play football. But I'm sure there's other guys out there as well too. Silverado Kev, again, thank you so much, man. Two more. One, with both the offense and defense going conservative at the same time, talking about the end of the game. Kyle and shotgun and short yardage both make me sick. Thoughts? Yeah, I'm with you, Kev. The whole idea when you need a yard and you drop your quarterback back 4 yards to hand it off to somebody who's 4 yards, maybe to get him a running start. I'm not saying to institute the tush push, but let's get under center and let's try to push that pile some way, right? So like I've always thought about that as well too. And Amp the Carolina Niner, are we changing from a more physical team to more finesse? Is that why Debo doesn't seem to have a role? I don't think so. I think when you watch this game, especially up front, I think there were some issues with Spencer Burford again this week. If I'm not mistaken, he got like graded again 25.8 in pass blocking
Really
again,
bad.
like out of
Yeah.
100. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't think that they are. I think that the Bucs aren't exactly as physical as the 49ers. So if it looks easy, Debo has a role. I mean, they tried. I If there was a bet out there on any sort of platform, is the first play going to be a handoff to Debo? I would smash that bet every single game. I would smash that bet because I think it's like two of the last three that he's played in Cleveland. I know for sure the first play, and then the first play in Tampa. So they want to get him involved. It's just the way that Ayuk runs routes, the way that Kittle's been getting open, and the way that they use CMC. There's always going to be one guy that's going to be left out to dry. But yeah, I don't think they'd turn into finesse. What do you think, Steph?
I also just don't think they've had to rely on their physicality as much in
Right,
these last two games.
right.
And certainly we didn't see the physicality during the losses, right? So it's been a minute, since we've seen it, like the bully ball that we talk about and all that.
Uh huh.
But it's gonna show itself one way or another again. And I think I would bet that we see it within these next few weeks, the stretch, because they are gonna need their physicality for some of these games, probably against the Seahawks, right? Because they always play the 49ers tough and they always play physical. So yeah, we're gonna see it this week, I think. And I almost feel like I know some people are speculating that Debo maybe isn't 100% healthy yet. That's a possibility, sure. But I also feel like, sometimes Kyle Shanahan, I think he sets things up. We always talk about like he sets things up in play to kind of just counter that like later in the game because you've seen it before, or you do the opposite, something like that. I feel like sometimes he sets things up in games too. Like he'll for a few games, we're seeing a lot of Kittle lately. Maybe Thursdays when we see a lot of Debo. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's me speculating. Tinfoil
Well,
hat on, real quick.
no, and that's very fair, right? Because off of a short week, right, and it is a little bit of travel. And David Henry Edmondson, thank you for the donation, by the way. Um, there is an idea that possibly someone else can step up, and I forgot to talk about this on offense. And I know it's going to sound silly, but please hear me out. Elijah Mitchell had 4 carries for 24 yards, but that's the best that Elijah Mitchell has looked
Yeah.
in a long time. Now, you have a short week. You're going on Thursday, right? And obviously, it's Mitchell got 4 carries in a row on one drive, and then Kyle was like, "All right, enough. Like, get on the sideline." That was it. Like, for enough for him. But what if it is a little bit more Elijah Mitchell this week? Because you do expect the game to get a little. You might have to punch them back and play ball control. Maybe your offense isn't humming the way that it has been, and you're not getting the big plays that you notice, right? And maybe Debo is a little less used on Sunday because Thursday is a game when you're gonna out physical, right? Like he's gonna run the ball a little bit more, right? So I think it all goes by one, personnel, two, by health, obviously, and three, kind of just setting it up. Like on a short week, I think we've talked about it. The 49ers have had the least amount of rest in between the games, and they're gonna play 4 teams this season off of a bye. They have the most travel miles. A lot of this stuff maybe from the bye week was about figuring out how to spread everything out. Certain games we're
Yeah.
going to do certain things. and we're gonna go case by case, right? So you have a
Yeah.
game where all these guys go off on Sunday. Well, Thursday, you know what? Maybe you get a little bit more Elijah Mitchell, you get a little bit more Debo, because you may not have those explosives that you were having against the Bucs. It may be one of those grinded out games that I think it's going to be. Spoiler alert, right? Like it's gonna have to be ball control. Maybe your defense isn't playing as well as you think, right? Like you have to have all of those things in your mind. Again, the 49ers are better than the Seattle Seahawks, and I don't think it's as close as people believe, or some people will believe, but it is the Seattle Seahawks, and it is on a short week, and it is in Seattle, and there are things that happen in that stupid stadium, and it's always like it's always some nonsense, right? Like Gino throws it, it bounces off a referee's arm, and it goes into Lockett's hands, touchdown, and it's just like there's nothing you can do about it. There's always something fluky that goes on with the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm starting to think it wasn't a Russell Wilson thing; it's a Pete Carroll thing. It is a Pete Carroll thing, and he's been the guy in the shadows that we really need to find and not let coach anymore. But yeah, I think that's I think that's really where at least my head's at least with the tinfoil. But Elijah Mitchell looked very good in his 4 touches. He looked like the guy who actually, had the most rookie rushing yards in 49ers history. Like that guy who was hitting holes and he was getting downhill. And when I watched it back, you notice his emotion because I think he feels it too. And I think he's starting to get the juice back. So I mean, look, I'm not trying to be optimistic or like overly optimistic or delusional, but this is 2 straight weeks in which, after the Jaguars game, I said the same thing. I was like, hey, like, he's starting to, get past the line of scrimmage. Well, now he's getting to the second level. So there might be a little bit more of a ramp up there.
Yeah, I was talking with Ashley Ariana about this yesterday, and she mentioned that Elijah Mitchell, he's like a rhythm rusher, right? Like he sometimes he needs a couple of consecutive carries to really get going, and I would even take it a little bit further that, especially when he's coming off injuries, I think it takes him some games to get going, especially when he's missed as much time as he has, right? Sometimes it just takes a while to get that back. And so, yeah, I thought it was cool on Sunday to see some efficiency out of Mitchell. I would expect that comes back. He's several weeks removed from that injury now. So he's got fresh legs now. And I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny too, because I kind of felt like Hal did that on purpose, but he did clarify after that it was I think he said Bobby Turner, said McCaffrey's gotten a lot of carries. Let's put Elijah in, and Kyle's like, yeah, okay. But I don't know. I thought it was because of the line of questioning that he got about the running back.
Oh, that's tinfoil hat, right? And it all
That's what I thought.
well,
But
I think it would have been that, and shout out to Grant if you guys know, But I think if that was that, he would have got like 10, 12 carries. Like if he would have got 10, 12 carries, I would have been like, oh, that's definitely a response to that. But love Grant, man. That was such a good question. And I
Kyle's
just
petty.
yeah, he is a little bit, right? But that was so overblown by 49er
Yeah.
fans getting upset about that. That was a legit question. I think that's a legit
Oh, yeah.
question.
It was
And Kyle told the Fox broadcast crew he was doing things to try and keep guys fresh for the stretch run. Boom, and I can't even hear that
they need
from
it.
in the stadium, and I can't hear that from the stadium, and that's what I surmise from it as well too. So yeah, Steph, whoo, man, I'm gonna lay down because I am jet lagged, but thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte2103. Please like and subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. And also check out GoldStandardNiners.com where Rob writes up grades. There's a lot of fun stuff on there as well too, and you can get the feed as well. Whew, Steph and everybody who's watching, enjoy your time with your family. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Try not to stress out too much on Thanksgiving, even though I'm already sweating. But for Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.